You are one of the leading serviced accommodation providers in the UK, and we want to know all about it, how it started, the challenges, where you're expanding to, and we want to share some incredible tips for people tuning in. So let's go back to the beginning. 7 years ago, why did you make the decision to stop what you were doing and get into property?
For me, I was bored. I had a great job. I was traveling. I was doing great things, but I was bored. I wasn't living the life I wanted to live. I was going to the office every day and having my holidays dictated by somebody else and not earning the sort of money I wanted to earn. And the future didn't look like the future I wanted. And so it was time to make a change, and it was time to do something. What that was going to be, I wasn't entirely sure. And so I joined the Assets for Life Academy, and we started working through various property strategies, and none of them quite fit me. And we sat down, and I was like, Leo, this doesn't work. And you're like, hold on, let's have a look again. And I remember you sat down, you went through the strategies and went, Rob, you've got a background in travel. Why aren't we doing serviced accommodation? And from that moment on, everything changed.
Yeah, great. And I think that really appealed to you because you love to travel. And you spend, I think, half your time now somewhere in the world doing something insane. And that just went with you perfectly because you liked the idea of the expansion. And I think fairly early on, you already had these grand ideas that this wasn't just going to be some rent-to-rent business making £1,000 per year per property. This was going to be something really special. Is that a fair assumption to make?
Yeah, I mean, there was never a plan for this to just be a lifestyle business. This was always going to be, how big can we grow it? There was always a plan of 10,000 units and a hotel in Vegas on the Strip. That still exists. That's still a plan.
I feel what you've said there, not many people have that when they start a business. They're not too sure. They're half in, half out. But I remember all those years ago, you were just like all in on this, like ruthless, relentless, up late, getting up early. You wanted to build a business. And I think anyone tuning into this now, when you start owning or controlling assets, you can build a business. And if you're determined to do that, then it can really happen. So just talk us through those first couple of deals. How, because there's people here that, are not 7 years in the future. They're in their day jobs. They're in a business. How does someone go and get that first deal? What was your first deal, and how can someone go and do that?
It's a great question. It's a really great question. And I think that first deal is the hardest one. Like, it's really hard. Like, honestly, I can't tell you how hard that first deal is. And it's the one where you haven't got any background. You haven't got the experience. You can't go and say, I've done all these things before. Trust me. You've got to build some trust with somebody. You've got to get them to buy into what your vision is for the future. And it was just hard yards. Just lots of no's, lots of knocking on doors, lots of phone calls, and lots of being told, no, you can't have this property. You can't have that one. But the thing that changed, and there was one thing that changed, I realized that there were lots of other people out there doing this thing. And I'm at least as good as most people, was my thinking. I'm certainly able to do it. If somebody else can do it, why can't I do it? And that was the game changer, because I was sort of getting quite despondent. I was like, why is everybody saying no? And I was like, well, if somebody else can do it, why can't I?
So it was like you probably felt like you were holding on to a small piece of thread at times.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how it can be in business and property. And at that point, a lot of people give up and they go back to what they always know, which was never even comfortable anyway. But people get comfortable being uncomfortable and just living in shit. And it's like, well, that's just the way it was. But you fought on, and you say something which I still share with people today. And you say, aim for 50 no's. And if you go for 50 no's on that first deal, you'll probably almost certainly get a deal. You'll get a landlord or an agent that wants to work with you. So you started with rent to rent.
Yep.
And did you do that with your own money? Did you get an investor on board? How can people start if they don't have their own funds as well?
Yeah, so I didn't have the money. I was spending everything I was earning. I was having as great a time as I could working in a corporate job. And So I didn't have the money to do it myself. Now, thankfully, I was documenting everything I was doing on social media. I was like, I'm at this event, I'm knocking on these doors, I'm ringing these agents, I'm looking at this property. And just by chance, so somebody reached out to me on social media and said, hey, I've seen what you've been doing. As it happens, we've got a mutual friend. I've spoken to them. I've checked you out. I'd like to meet with you. I was like, right, when can we meet? And there and then he said, right, I've got £80,000. Let me know how you want to spend it. Come to me with a proper opportunity and we'll do it. In the end, I borrowed, I think, 4,000. He had that money back within sort of 6 or 7 months. And we worked together for a long time.
Wow, great.
So that
it's mad, isn't it? You know, most people are on social media, but they're what we call consumers, not producers.
Yeah.
And they'll scroll and they'll stalk. And if you actually just get committed on what you're doing and document what you do, you don't know how long it's going to be, but you then become a producer and people will reach out. And then when you do need the money, like you've put in the graft. You know, no one just raises joint venture funding by waking up and the money's in the letterbox. We've got to do something before, which is like the catalyst. And that's
Absolutely.
incredible. And that got you up and running. So no money down deals, structuring that with investor. Talk us through then that first, 1 to 3 years going from that first unit. What were some of the struggles and how did you overcome those? And then just talk us through the first 3 years. So how did you go from that to where you were 3 years later?
Great question. So again, I remember a conversation we had very clearly. I took the first deal on, it was up and running, it was making money. And you said, Rob, how many more are you getting? And I said, none right now, none. Because we were like a month in. I was like a month in and I was looking at it really rationally, which I don't always do. I often get too excited, but I thought, you know what? I'm really in this for the long term. It doesn't have to make me £1 million this year. What it has to do is work. And so rather than going out and getting 3, 4, 5 units in the next sort of 6 to 12 months, I thought, let's just do one. Let's find the problems. Let's encounter them on a small scale and fix them. And then let's grow. And so I think it was probably 6 or 8 months before I took on unit number 2.
Yeah.
And that was, again, rinse and repeat. It was another investor. They put some money in. We did another deal together. And that was great. We did deal number 3, same way exactly. And then my eyes started to open to all the administration of owning lots of companies. And I thought, well, if I want 10,000 units, I don't want 10,000 companies, 10,000 sets of accounts to file and 10,000 sets of confirmation statements and 10,000 teams. No way. So I started then to look at it in a different way. And I thought, well, how do I structure this so it's one business? And we could have done one business with people loaning money to start the units. That was an option. But what I decided the fastest way for me to grow was to start a management company.
Great.
And so I exited the joint ventures I had. I said, look, I'm going to hand that back to you. You keep all the profits now, but I'm going to charge a management fee. They were happy. They were earning slightly more. I was taking a little bit of a hit, but it set me on a journey where I could grow infinitely more quickly.
Great.
So sort of 3 years in, we were probably at about 25, 30 units.
Great. So just so everyone is clear, what is the difference between, say, rent to rent and management?
Great question. Yeah, really great question. So rent to rent, you're renting a property, you're operating it, you suffer the ups and the downs, and that's your business. That it's just a one thing. Whereas with a management company, what I will do is, if you own a property, say you don't have the time to do rent to service accommodation yourself, I can do all that for you. So you might have it on a single let now, you're earning £150 a month after paying your mortgage. I'll take the hassle off your hands. You do no more work, but you might earn 500, 800, £1,000 a month on top. So it's a no-brainer. If you've got a property that's suitable in an area that works, it's a no-brainer to hand it to a management company who can just make you more from your existing asset, really sweat the asset.
How did you deal mentally with the pressure then of having these 20 units under management at the end of, let's just call it year 3?
Mm-hmm.
There's quite a bit of pressure there from the landlords if you're not getting the bookings.
Yeah.
So just talk us through how mentally you dealt with that and what did you then get really good at? Because this appeals to anyone, even if they're not doing a management, but they need to get more guests in their properties. What's the magic? People are struggling out there that don't know what to do, that haven't got mentorship. They do an SA unit and they can't bloody rent the thing out, and they've got these huge voids. 3 years in, you're managing 20. Talk us through that process.
Yes, I mean, mentally it's hard. I mean, business is hard.
Yeah.
You know, business is not easy, and you'll have your times where you're like, yeah, we're making loads of money, everything's going well, bookings are coming in, everything's working great. And you've got to enjoy those because they don't last. You get the good times, and you equally get the times where you're like, God, nothing's working.
Yeah.
And I think to grow a big business, I mean, lifestyle businesses, you're going to have that too. If you just want a small business, pays you an income, and you're quite happy with $5,000 a month, great. But if you want to build a bigger business, then those pressures get much, much bigger. And I think you've got to have the self-confidence. You've got to remember the good times. You've got to remember, actually, I can do this. I did do this. It's not working right now, but there'll be a reason. There's always a reason. And it's exactly the same when it comes to filling units. If a unit isn't performing, and I get it all the time, people come to me and say, my property's not working. Will you manage it? Can you fix it? And I sit down, I go through it, I look at the listing, I look at the pricing, I look at the reviews, I look at the market, and there's always a reason. And the question is, which reason is it? If the market is good, which in large parts of the UK is, then it's going to be something to do with the way they're marketing it. If they've got a 3 out of 10 review score, that's going to make it really, really hard to fill. If you've overpriced it, which is a really common mistake, people say, well, I need to make this much money, so my price is X. The market doesn't care what you need to make.
Not exactly.
The market will pay what the market's paying. So if you think, I need to make £150 a night, but everybody else is charging 120, you'll sit there empty. Yeah. If you haven't got professional photography, if your first photo is of, I don't know, a bed, people confuse it with a hotel and can't understand why it's so expensive. And when people get confused, people don't buy.
That's really good. So even the way the photos are laid out on the listing is really important. The description.
It's all you've got. You've got photos, you've got pricing, you've got location.
Yeah.
That's more or less
just
all you have.
One of these things means that you don't get bookings.
Very easily, yeah.
So,
or you get very, very low bookings rather than getting the bookings that you need to make a decent profit. Yeah. And that's where I spend, to this day, a huge amount of my time reviewing listings, reviewing pricing, changing the strategies. Because if you wanted lots of bookings, you put them all on one night stays, because that's like something like 70% of the inquiries on booking.com are for one night stays. Now, that doesn't work for us. We can't make money that way. But equally, you could go the other way. 30 night stays, loads of money in those, but a much smaller market. And it's about finding the right thing at the right time for the right market and the right property.
The right price, the right property, the right area, yeah?
Yeah.
So it's important to get the knowledge. It's important to get the education. So you're sitting 3 years in at 20 managed units. Mm-hmm. And surely you need a team for that. So if you can just give some insights, where's your team? Mm-hmm. Are they UK based? Are they dotted all over the world? Who's in your team? Because I know you're very much like me. You want to be working on the business, not in the business. So how have you been able to do that?
So at that point, I was using entirely outsourced labor in the Philippines. The Philippines is a great option for virtual assistants. Their English is fantastic. They're wonderful people. They're very loyal. They're very dedicated. For a Filipino, you're offering hours. If you're offering UK working hours, it's sort of 4 p.m. till around midnight, which is quite a nice shift. So they get all day to do what they want. They work in the evening. They get to bed at a reasonable time. And actually, as UK employers in the Philippines, we have an advantage there, because if they wanted to work for the US, they're working all night and then they're sleeping all day, which is no real life. And because of the economy over there, we can pay them really good money in their terms, but save a lot of money versus employing in the UK, which actually in the early stages is absolutely necessary. We couldn't have afforded UK staff, which would have meant, like many business owners, I would have been stressed to the eyeballs and I would have been unable to really grow the business.
Great.
Because I think that's pretty common. Like business owner burnout is like super common because they can't do everything themselves, but they can't afford to hire.
Yeah. Now,
virtual assistants are a great way to bridge that gap.
Okay, great. So at the point of doing 20 units, how many virtual assistants were you having in the Philippines?
At that point, I think I had two.
Two.
I think I only had two.
You and two others.
Me and two others. They're both still with me.
Fantastic. Yeah. And how were you acquiring the properties from landlords?
I mean, that's the crazy thing. And to this day, it's still the crazy thing. I've never marketed my business. Okay. I've never spent a penny on advertising. I've done the entire thing based on referrals and one person saying, hey, he manages mine, he could do it for you. People I've met at networking events, people that I speak to on social media. I've never paid a penny in advertising.
Wow, great. Yeah. So just word of mouth, that's fantastic. Fast forward 3 years to 7 years then. Mm-hmm. Where did the business go from and to? Where is it at now? Staff, structure, units. What do you do with your time? Give us some insights into the world of Rob Mason right now, 7 years into his serviced accommodation empire.
Wow, now that's, so the last 4 years have been bonkers. So we sort of hit a point where everything became possible. So at this point, we've got just shy of 100 units. We're looking to add 100 more this year, massive targets this year, and we are going to spend some money on advertising for the first time. So we've got a big plan for this year in the UK. We're also just starting to make some inroads into a potential expansion in Dubai. Potentially
hot spot right now, isn't it?
Very, hot. I think so. I think there's a lot of service accommodation there, and I think if we take our model and put it there, it won't work. Yeah. So we're going to have to tweak that. We're going to have to offer something slightly different to we offer in the UK. But I've got people on the ground there. We're looking at that right now. I've got meetings in Dubai in a few weeks. We're looking at the US as well. At the moment, Booking.com is putting all their eggs in the homestay market in the US. Okay. And if they're doing it, there's a fair reason, there's a fair assumption there that there's going to be some fireworks in the US from a service accommodation point of view. So we're looking at that really closely. Wow. I've also got a cleaning company now. We've just recently formed a furnishing company. We have Book My Digs, my contractor agency, which is going from strength to strength. That should do a couple of million on its own this year. Wow. So businesses are all over the place. We've got 1,000 things going on. Great. But
I like the way that you've looked at that model, and now you employ the cleaners, you now do the furniture, you now do the contractor. You're monetizing every single element of what anyone needs to have a successful serviced accommodation unit. And that's super smart, and I think that's really incredible, and something which people need to be doing more of.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much money we spend all the way through. Yeah. I mean, we started the cleaning business because we were spending something like £25,000 a month on cleaning. I was like, well, if I had a cleaning company, we could do that. We could earn some money, but we could reduce the prices for our owners so they make more. I make something, they make something, everybody wins. And if we can do that at every stage of the journey, then it just makes a better and better business for every one of our owners that joins us.
Great. Good. Okay, so turnover now, number of staff, and what targets have you got for the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, group turnover this year, I would hope to be in the region of sort of four to 5 million, something like that. If we have the year-end planning.
If I said that to you 7 years ago when you was at that London event at the in Blackfriars, I was actually at that hotel earlier this week. We were meeting, and I thought about you because I knew you were going to come in this week. You was at that. If I'd said that to you 7 years ago, bonkers, right?
Yeah, I'd have never seen that coming. Wow. I mean, I've got probably 40 staff around the UK, and around the world. And at the same time, I'm doing what I love. I mean, this week I've been all over the UK seeing properties. I've got a hotel I'm going to see on Monday that we're thinking about buying and renovating. We've got so many cool things going on. Yeah, I'm traveling all the time. I'm doing the thing that I wanted to do at the beginning.
So for the next traveling, but working, turning your passion into profit, your vocation into your vacation.
Yeah, absolutely. Over the next 3 to 4 weeks, I'll be away for most of it. Yeah. I'm going surfing in Africa. I'm going to the Caribbean with the kids, and I'm going skiing. It's an incredible few weeks, and I'll work all the way through in what I call work, which will probably be half days and a few messages here and there.
Yeah, mobile laptop lifestyle. You've created a business around one of your highest values, which is travel and having fun. Yeah. And that is what's possible. That's what's possible. Okay, this has been incredible. I'm so pleased we've done this today.
Yeah, and me.
Because you've grown so much. It's wow. It's unbelievable. People tuning in, they're at the start of their journey. If you could share some words of wisdom, some golden nuggets, what would you say to people right now at the start of this journey?
I mean, like this isn't easy. If it was, everybody would do it. But the bottom line is, if you really want it, whatever it is you really want, you can do it if you're prepared to put in the work. There's been times where we've been making money hand over fist and it's been great. There's been times I've been crying, I've been like head on my desk, I put my fist through my desk one day. There's been times where it's been bad. And you've got to work through the good to get, you've got to work through the bad to get to the good. And just have confidence that with the right people around you, with the right support, getting the right mentors and getting the right education, you can absolutely do this. It's just a case of how much you want it.
So if you are somebody that really wants to create more wealth for you and your future, then why don't you look at becoming a professional property investor where you can take advantage of the UK's #1 asset class and make passive income and also capital appreciation. So I'd invite you now to click the link in the comments or the bio and go and access my latest book called Property Success. This is where I introduce you to the 7 step-by-step system known as the Property Freedom Formula that I have used personally to do over £31 million worth of property development. So go and do that right now. I really hope you enjoy this asset, and it could be the difference that makes the difference and gets you up and running in the next 90 days.